Jo was a divorced mom living with her 3 daughters in the suburbs. Her marriage was a loveless affair which lasted for well over 20 years before it came to a long overdue ending. She got pregnant at 17 with her best friend's brother. After much deliberation and stress, she decided she will keep the baby despite the fact that the guy wanted nothing to do with her after the fact. Her mom, who was also a single mom, helped her out in every way possible for the first couple of years of the baby's life before she met her soon-to-be husband. At first, the love was prospering and she felt as happy as it gets. Her now ex-husband Jim accepted her little girl and the two soon moved together, married, and she got pregnant again. The two of them were still virtually kids, as she was 21 and her Jim was 23, and expecting their 2 children. That second child turned out to be more than they bargained for, as they got 2 for the price of 1. With 3 kids in the fold, Jim decided he wanted to start his own business in addition to working 9 to 5. The business slowly grew and with time it became big enough for him to quit his day job. But with the growth of the business, his relationship with his wife deteriorated as well. Jo became his work assistant and spent all her days either taking care of Kirsten, Jen, and Jill or working for her husband, organizing a meeting with potential clients, keeping track of finances, etc. The two often butted heads on the business plan, leading to daily arguments, Jim spending a lot of time on the road, Jo being frustrated with their sex life and being stuck in the rut. But even with all that, she sucked it up and stayed with Jim for 10 more years, helping him to grow the business even further until one day she had to take her husband's car to the shops because hers was in a car shop for repairs. As she was driving along with her husband's work phone, he forgot in the car kept buzzing along under the passenger seat. He probably dropped it as he was getting his briefcase out of the back seat after Jo dropped him off at a client's house. After she got to the mall, she reached under the seat and found the phone. It was filled with messages from one of her husband's clients which were pretty graphics. The woman who sent him the pictures and raunchy texts was a lady he sold a house to about 3 years ago. At first, Jo was furious and she wanted to kill him, but after a good cry and some serious thought, she decided that getting mad and throwing fits won't bring any good. This was finally her get-out-of-jail-free card. She wanted to leave him for years and now she finally has a great excuse. She decided she will call the girls and tell them that her mom called her and that she needs to get to her place, so she probably won't be back home today. But she didn't get to her mom's house. She instead left for their holiday house up in the hills, sat behind the laptop and wrote a long email to her husband outlining everything that she knows, how much time she spent helping him build the company, raising the kids, and what she wants from him. She told him she wants both the house and the holiday home, along with compensation for her share in the company, severance pay, and alimony. When she hit send, she felt the weight of the world fall off her shoulders. The other morning she got a call from her husband and she told him that if he wants to talk he can find her in the hills. He came there soon after, and even though she was furious at the sight of him, she kept calm and they worked it out without much fuss as they both wanted out, and now that the kids are all over 20 years old they can go their separate ways. Jim accepted all her demands and soon after the divorce was finalized. Since the divorce, Jo also managed to find work as an assistant to the CEO of mid-level real estate agency in a part, and she liked it there and felt she has some room to grow there as the CEO Samantha valued her opinion and knew her from her days back in her husband's agency. Samantha and Jim always went head to head in the past, so Sam jumped at the chance to hire Jo to one-up Jim. Girls stayed with her and visited their dad on weekends, and during the next year, her bond with her girls became even stronger. They became friends and they talked openly about everything, from college, stuff that was bothering them, to boys and sex. Jo really wasn't all that open to dating again, as her experiences with guys weren't all that pleasant, but the girls kept bugging her about it. One day her oldest Kristen created a profile for her on one of the dating sites and surprised her with it, showing her all the responses she got. Some were pretty tame, but others were pretty out there. She was both freaked out by some of the stuff she read, but at the same time, it flattered her when she saw 20-something-year-olds saying she looks hot, and that she is a MILF and about all the thing they would do to her. After plenty of arguments with the girls, she decided to pick one guy to go out on a date with, and after some further problems with setting up a date she finally managed to do so and arranged to meet with a guy in a restaurant downtown. At first, the night started off well, her date looked really nice and the conversation ran nicely. But soon the ugly side of her date came out. He kept being obnoxious to the waiters, his remarks were borderline sexist, he told her he doesn't like her woman to be working, and other nonsense like that. Soon she had enough of him, but she couldn't get rid of him. So she decided to take a break by going to the bathroom. On the way there she ran into someone from her work. It was Dean from the IT department, and they got to talking even though she didn't speak a couple of words to him at work, other than when she needed something fixed, or to say hi when passing by. But she just wanted to be away from her date, so she talked to him. She told him all about the date, how big of a douche he was and how she just wants to run away, so Dean told her to give him his phone number so that he can call her and that way she can make up an excuse to get away from him. They agreed to do so, and minutes after she returned to the table, Dean called and she said it was her daughter and that she needs to go home quickly. She quickly got up, didn't even say bye properly and basically ran away. When she got outside of the restaurant she saw Dean again and thanked him for the help. What she didn't know is that Dean has a thing for older ladies and that at work he was always trying to catch a glimpse of her and her curvy body. And Jo looked really nice tonight, she had her blonde hair falling down her back, she wore a nice dress with a flower pattern which ended just above her knees, she wore flaming red lipstick and her breasts were accentuated by a deep cleavage of the dress. Her biggest attribute, which was her curvy hips and perky bubble butt, were hidden, but still showing enough to pique interest, and Dean did remember looking at what to him was a perfect ass at work when Jo was wearing something less loose and tighter. Dean himself was 25, working in the company for 3 years, and while he wasn't overly happy with his work, as it didn't allow for a lot of growth on the business plan, he found comfort in little things like helping out Jo at work with her computer. Jo noticed Dean at work, as she thought he was kind of cute, but more in an innocent kind of way. With his blonde hair he wore like someone out of a surfer movie, blue eyes, and overall nice looking body. But she never looked at him as someone who would be anything more than an acquaintance. They got to talking outside of the restaurant and Dean offered to take her home, and she was without a car because Kirsten dropped her off. He told her they live close by and that's no problem for him to drop her off, as it's only a short drive to his flat from her house. Later, Jo will figure out he lied because he actually lived about 20 miles from her house, but that's not important now. Jo reluctantly agreed to his suggestion and she got in his car after he convinced her, telling her it will rain soon, and that her date might come out of the restaurant any second now, etc. During the car ride, they talked and talked about the date, girls, men, and how they don't understand one another, and soon enough they were in front of her house. Before she left the car she told him she owes him one for getting her out of the date from hell. Dean: sure, I have your number so now I can call you anytime. Jo: ha ha ha, don't go wasting it. Save it for something important, you know, like getting out of a really bad date. Oh, and don't call me in the middle of the night, I need my beauty sleep after all. Dean: really? I don't think so, winking. Jo: your generation never stops, always trying to talk us ladies into trouble. Dean: never. Just telling it like it is. Jo: sure, sure. Blushing. Dean: Scout's honor. Jo: my girls told me all about guys like you, sending raunchy texts, hounding girls, playing the knight on the white horse. Dean: well, I was the white knight tonight and I saved you from an ogre, and gallantly offered to take you home in my white horse carriage, and I promise I'm not sending dick pics until the third date. Jo laughing: interesting POV, and I like how you guys always manage to have your dick pop up in the conversation at the worst time. Dean: hey, gotta bring up our strong suits. Jo: strong suit? Not from my experience. Dean: don't knock. Nope, I'm gonna stop myself there, winking. Jo: hi. You are a silly kid, aren't you? Run along now before my kids see that I'm being dropped off at home by someone who is their own age. Dean: I'm disappointed you are an ageist, laughing his guts out. Joe, run along Dean and see you tomorrow. Dean, bye. This whole banter and the talk with Dean in the car during the ride made Joe forget all about the terrible date she was on, and then her phone rang. It was a message from Dean and it just said I lied, and then moments later she got another one that only had a link in it. She clicked on it and she was taken to a picture of Richard Gere. At first, she didn't get why he sent her that, but then she realized he sent her a picture of a dick and she started laughing like crazy while she was walking towards the house. She turned around and saw that he is still around the corner and she just waved at him and went inside. As she walked in she was met by the three-headed dragon that was her daughters. For the next hour or so she was roasted by question after question about her date, but in the end spent most of the time talking about Dean, and how he saved her from her date, how they talked, but she left the part about his age out as she was a bit hesitant to share that as she was afraid the girls wouldn't take well to that. They told her he sounds nice and that she should try something with him, but she refused to do so and didn't want to send him a text saying she doesn't want to get involved with a coworker. When the girls finally let her be, she went to her room and started to prepare a bubble bath in her ensuite bathroom. She lit a few candles, put in some bath salts, dimmed the light and entered the warm water to relax. As she was letting go, she caught a glimpse of her phone on the cabinet next to the bathtub. At first, she tried to resist looking at it, but after a couple of minutes, she decided to take a look. She saw a new message on her phone and her heart started racing. She unlocked the phone only to see it was a message from her ex-husband letting her know he will come to the house tomorrow because he needs to pick up girls as they were going on a vacation together. She was disappointed it was only him, and took a deep breath and dove her head into the water. When she came back up she saw she has another message. This time it was from Dean and it just said, "Do you like my dick pic?" She giggled like a schoolgirl and just answered, "I've seen better." Dean, "I have better one if you'd like." Joe, "I'm not sure, I thought you were decent and here you are sending dick pics to coworkers." Dean, "I'm bad I know. I need someone to get me in line." Joe, "You sure do boy." Dean, "If only there was someone who can get me in line and owes me a favor, but I can't remember anyone like that." Joe, very happy very happy. Dean, "Yep, drawing a complete blank." Joe, "I know someone who could help you." Dean, "Really?" Joe, "Yeah, I have a friend therapist, he does wonders wink." Dean, as enticing as that sounds I had something different in mind." Joe, "And what might that be?" Dean, "There's this girl at work. Comes in every day dressed to kill, and she seems really stern and keeps everyone in line." Joe, "Not sure who you're talking about. I don't remember a girl working there, mostly old men and 40-plus ladies apart from that one kid from IT who thinks he is all that." Dean, "Really? I mean I saw her on Monday, she was wearing a white blouse which was tight in all the right places, and those push-up jeans she likes to wear, and she looks 30 at the most." Joe, "Oh her, yeah I forgot her. I hear she's trouble, you don't want to mess with her. And from what I know she is around 25. Dean, "Yeah? Man, I'm bad with age. She does look bossy and likes to tell me what to do, so I think she fits the bill. Last week she told me I need to fix her printer and I felt terrified because she looks so scary when she is in the zone." Joe, "Yep, a real nutcracker." Dean, "Well that sounds painful." As they were messaging, Joe's hand slowly started to descend towards her clit and she started rubbing it slowly and gently. Joe, "Yep." Dean, "But still, can you put in a good word for me with her?" Joe, "I'll see what I can do." Dean, "Please, and then we can say we are even, one date with her and in fact, I owe you one." Joe, "Date?" Dean, "I meant session." Joe, that sound ambiguous." Dean, "You know, I get to her place, lay down on the sofa, she does things to me. I mean talk with me." Joe, very happy very happy very happy very happy. "She does things to you, ha ha ha." Dean, Talks to me. Joe, sure, sure. Dean, you see that I need help. Joe, you sure do. Dean, I won't be at work tomorrow so you can talk to her then and see what she says. Joe, sure, I'll let you know. Now go to bed and go to sleep, it's past your bedtime. Dean, see that's what I need. A firm hand. Joe, good night silly. Dean, good night. Joe wanted to get rid of Dean so that she can focus on herself. She rubbed her clit and she was extremely turned on by the conversation with Dean. She felt as hot as she hasn't in ages. A 25-year-old making passes at her made her feel great and she kept thinking about what it would feel like to be with him. She hasn't had sex in a couple of years, and she's only been with 2 guys in her life. So the thought of being with someone new and unfamiliar made her horny and she was barely restraining herself from calling him right now and telling him to get to her house in the hills. She grabbed her special shower head, which was her trusted friend in the last couple of years, turned it on and massaged her clit and pussy while moaning with ecstasy. Soon she took the next step and started fingering herself, first with 1 finger, then with 2 as she was nearing climax. The shower head soon helped her get to the point of no return and she let out a scream of ecstasy as she came. Trembling with excitement and orgasming, SH just let herself go and slowly descended below the water surface. After she got out of the bathtub she just lay down on her bed in her birthday suit and covered herself with the silky sheet which felt so soft and nice on her skin. Exhausted from all the excitement she soon fell asleep and dreamt about Dean. As morning came and the sun made its way to her room she woke up and started getting ready for work. She felt both relieved and sad that Dean wasn't going to be there. Throughout the day she kept thinking about what to do and didn't do anything at work. As she left for home Dean was still on her mind and after spending much of the evening mulling what to do next she decided to send him a message and be done with it. The only thing she wrote was 17 Hillside Road, be there at 10 a.m. tomorrow and bring some outdoorsy clothes with you. Her plan was to get him up there in the hills, talk to him, see how it goes. She quickly packed up and drove up there feeling anxious about what tomorrow will bring. She went to bed knowing tomorrow is the day of reckoning so to speak, and because of this she couldn't get any sleep. She was constantly turning around in the bed, 1 second she was hot, the another cold. She couldn't stop her heart from racing until she finally fell asleep at around 4 a.m. In what seemed to be seconds later she heard her phone ringing. She barely found it hidden under the covers and answered it. Who is this? Dean, it's me, Dean. I'm here in front of the house but no one is answering. Joe, shit, sorry I slept in. I forgot to turn on my alarm. I'll be down in a second. She quickly got out of the bed, put on a white tank top without a bra because she couldn't find it in all the mess. She meant to wake up early in the morning and get everything ready, but because she slept in everything was in chaos. Barely found her panties as she was sleeping naked and grabbed the first pants she found, which were yoga pants she arrived in here yesterday. She quickly came downstairs, nearly falling down the stairs in haste. She opened the door and there was Dean. She couldn't help but giggle like a schoolgirl when she sees her crush. It was a bit awkward at first as she didn't know what to do, but then Dean broke the silence as he handed her a handful of flowers. Dean, these are for you. Joe, thanks, you didn't need to. Hey, wait, these looks like my flowers. Dean, yeah, about that. I'm not very bright, so I forgot to buy you anything, panicked and picked some flowers from your flower bed, blushing. Joe, ha 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 ha. Good save, but don't admit the crime if you don't want to do the time. Dean, what will be my punishment? Joe, we'll see, winking. Joe, do you want to eat something? Dean, no, I ate something at that dinner on the way here, and good that I did. But I can keep you company if you want to. Joe, why good? Dean, because I'd be starving by now since it's 1 p.m. Joe, at 1 p.m. Dean, yes, sleepyhead, I've been standing here for about 3 hours trying to wake you up. I called you I don't know how many times, banged on the door, rang the doorbell, nothing. I started wondering if you were looking through the blinds waiting for me to leave, laughing. Joe, sorry, I didn't hear a thing. This never happens to me. Dean, it's okay, I walked around a bit to see the sights. This place looks amazing. Joe, it's my little slice of heaven. Listen, I'll make us some sandwiches and we can hike for a bit. Or go down to the lake. Whichever you prefer. Dean, hiking sounds fun. Joe, great, just give me 15 minutes or so to throw some sandwiches together. Dean, do you need help? Joe, no, but you can keep me company. Dean, sure. They came to the kitchen and as Dean was walking behind her, he couldn't help but notice how the lacy pattern on her panties can be seen because of how tight her yoga pants are. He marveled at her perfect bubble butt and watched it in awe as she walked in front of him and while she was making sandwiches. They talked, joked around, packed everything in a bag and went outside. Dean cleverly lets Joe lead the way so that he can feast his eyes on her body as he walked in front of him up the narrow pathway. The conversation ran naturally and effortlessly and they reached the summit in what seemed no time. As they got there the weather started shifting. The clouds started coming in and thunder was rolling in the distance. They started going back downhill towards the house, but about halfway there after 20 minutes it started raining. First, it was light, but then after a little while, a complete downpour started. Joe started running downhill with Dean right behind her. As the rain was pretty heavy the pathway turned into a slippery mess covered with mud, rocks, and tree roots. Both of them had a couple of tumbles, but the best one came when they were practically in front of the house when Joe caught a root with her leg and fell flat on her face into a hole filled with muddy water. Dean helped her up but couldn't restrain himself from laughing when he saw how she looks. Her face filled with mud, her once snow-white tank top completely brown and drenched in water. Joe, I see this is funny to you. Dean, a little bit. Joe, I'll see what you think about this, as she pushed him in his chest, causing him to fall ass first into the same puddle she just got out of. Dean looked up at her and just started laughing even more, and Joe had a chuckle as well before she turned around and just ran away leaving him in a puddle. Dean yelling after her, so that's how you want to play. He slowly got up and started walking towards the house. When he got behind the bend so that he could see Joe running and wearing nothing but panties. As he made his way up the stairs towards the doors he saw her shirt and yoga pants on the floor in front of the door. Joe yelling from the downstairs bathroom, "Come in and go to the bathroom upstairs, first door on the left. But take your clothes off before so that we don't mess up the entire house." Dean stripped down and grabbed his bag that he left near the sofa and went upstairs. Joe couldn't help but peek a little bit from the bathroom through a small crack between the door and the door frame. She liked what she saw. He wore tight boxers highlighting his ass and the bulge in front and he had a nice body as well. She again caught herself thinking what she'd like to do to him. In the shower she again played with herself picturing him in his boxers, bending over to pick up his bag. After she showered she realized she forgot to take anything with her. She didn't have anything except a small towel and a bathrobe. No panties, bra, shirt, or pants. So she decided to quickly put it on and get up to her room before Dean is done with the shower. Her plan seemed to be working until she got to the top of the stairs and Dean opened the door to his bathroom. She grabbed both sides of the bathroom and pulled them together so that everything would remain hidden. They looked at one another, she standing there in a bathrobe and Dean fully clothed. They just chuckled a bit at one another and Dean said, "You look really nice." Joe, "Well thank you, you're not too bad yourself." Dean, "Thanks, thanks." Joe, "Do you want to grab a couple of glasses and a bottle of wine from the fridge and we can take a seat out on the porch and watch the rain? I always love to watch rain fall, I find it relaxing." Dean, "Sure, but I think you're dressed just fine." Joe, "You never stop do you?" Dean, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Joe looked down and she could see a nice looking bulge in Dean's shorts, which was not there a moment ago. Joe, "Sure, sure." Don't play coy, and go and open that wine. Dean went downstairs and Jo went to her room to get dressed. It took her a while before she decided what to wear, but in the end, she put on a nice little dress, which was tight in all the right places, and decided to go without any panties. That wasn't like her usual self. She was not the one to usually dress like that, and she hasn't worn that dress once since she bought it a couple years ago. Nor was she as open as she was with Dean in the past. One could even say she was shy before the divorce and before she started to flirt with Dean just a day ago. But something about him made her act like that. She liked him, how he looked, his sense of humor, even though it was a bit on the nose and full of innuendo which in the past wasn't appealing to her. She just let go for the first time since she became pregnant with Kirsten. Dean sat outside waiting for her to come down with a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses, counting seconds before he sees her again. She went to the bathroom upstairs and couldn't help but to see a pack of condoms laying on top of the bag, with the wrapper being torn and in the wastebasket next to the bag, and 1 condom missing from the pack. Jo thought to herself, that little piece of work, he already thinks he'll get lucky, I'll show him, and she decided to mess with him a bit. She came downstairs and at first started acting cold towards him, saying she wishes she was home, answering all his questions with 1 word, and then the next second she would act all playful and flirty, saying how nice he looks, how happy she is to be here with him, etc. Dean was so confused he had no idea how to act, and Jo was loving it, as she was teaching him a lesson and playing with his head, with him being none the wiser for it. As he was sitting in a chair, she came right in front of him, took a couple of steps towards the fence, with her back turned to him, and leaned on the fence so that her dress came up a little bit and was right under her booty. Dean could feel getting hard, and the boner in his pants was beginning to be more and more obvious. Jo, nice view, isn't it? Dean, it sure is. Jo, come closer, right behind me so I can show you better. Dean got up and stood a step behind Jo, and as she felt him near, she moved back a bit and pressed her perfect bubble butt against his crotch. She felt his hard dick in his pants and chuckled a bit, while he just cleared his throat. Jo, what, you don't like the view? Dean, it's perfect, as he was watching down at her booty rubbing against him. Jo turned her head towards him and smiled. What now? Dean, let's go inside. Jo, no, I like it here, and BTW there is no one here in a mile radius. Dean, oh really, and why is that important? Jo, use your brain for once, boy, as she moved her booty up and down against his crotch. He grabbed her, turned her around and picked her up like she was a feather and sat her down on top of the fence. Jo was petite, barely 5'3", a little lady with curves in all the right places, so a guy like Dean, who was 6'4" and 210 pounds, could pick her up and do what he wants without a problem, which turned them both on. She laughed a bit as he got her up there and looked into his eyes before kissing him. They started kissing passionately like there was no tomorrow, and for the first time in many years, she felt wanted and attractive. She pulled off his shirt and started kissing his neck and body, before jumping down from the fence and grabbing his dick over the pants with her hand. Jo, show him to me. Dean slowly took down his pants and Jo could see a nice bulge in his boxers. Jo, you're packing socks or? Dean, reach in and check for yourself. Jo pulled his boxers forward with her left hand and reached in with her right. She could feel the hard, warm, pulsating dick in her hand. She pulled down his boxers and was left standing face to face with Dean's hard dick. It looked so inviting to her, 7+ inches long, with some nice girth to it, and waiting to be used in every way imaginable. She gave it a tug or two before she got to her knees and started kissing it. She made sure she kissed every spot on it, from head to toe so to speak. With every kiss and tug, she felt it got even bigger. She then opened her mouth and wrapped it around the head of his dick and started sucking it. She sucked the tip, working it with her tongue at the same time. She dreamt about this while she was still married to Jim, but he never showed much interest in oral sex. She made her way down the shaft inch by inch, slowly taking his dick more and more in her mouth. As she was sucking him, Dean was softly moaning with pleasure. His dick tasted and smelled like vanilla thanks to the shower gel he used. As she was sucking him, she started playing with his balls, gently squeezing them and rolling them around in her hand. Dean, look at me while you're sucking it. Joe, you like that? Dean, yeah, it's really good. Joe, you want more? Dean, yeah, go faster. Joe grabbed his dick and started jerking it before she put it in her mouth again. She started sucking it faster and faster until she saw Dean close his eyes and starting to grimace. Then she stopped and said, "Your turn." Dean, you want me to eat you? Joe, yeah, eat me, boy. Dean, get on the chair and turn your ass towards me. Joe got on the chair, turned her ass towards Dean and waited for him to make the next move. He walked towards her and started caressing her body with his hands, first over the dress, and then he slowly raised her dress, revealing more and more of her perfect round bubble butt. He noticed she was wearing any panties and said, "No panties." Joe, does it bother you? Dean, not really, with a chuckle. He got on his knees and started kissing her, first on her lower back, and then making his way lower and lower until he reached her ass. He kissed it, bit it, fondled it, licked it to the lustful groans from Joe. He pulled apart her two cheeks, revealing a perfectly pink pussy which was visibly moist, and her tight little ass. He plunged his head right in there and started working her ass with his tongue. She felt a bit weird at first, but that was soon replaced by the sense of pleasure and ecstasy. No one rimmed her before, so this was all completely new to her, but the longer it lasted, the better it felt. While he was working her ass with his tongue, he was rubbing her clit with his fingers. Her pussy, wet from all the excitement, just waited to be played with. Dean, you like having your ass eaten? Joe, barely audible, mmhhm, yes. Dean, good, good. Now turn around and let me eat that pussy. Joe turned around in the chair, and spread her legs, exposing her little pink pussy right to Dean. Dean slowly lowered his head towards her pussy, first kissing her thighs, the outside of her pussy, before he gently exposed her clit with his fingers so that he can see in clearly in front of him. He gave it a kiss first and then started licking it. He licked her up and down, tasting her wet pussy and making it ready for his fingers. First, he slipped in his index finger and started pushing it deeper and deeper. She moaned as he was finger fucking her and eating her pussy. She grabbed his head and pushed it closer in, not letting him stop until she allows him to. Her pussy tasted so sweet to him and her juices were running down his chin as he ate her away. Joe, come on, fuck me. Dean, how do you want it? Joe, let me sit on you. Joe got out of the chair, and Dean sat down with his erect dick raised like a flagpole. He told her there is a condom in the pocket of his trousers. She grabbed it, gave his dick a couple of pumps and slid the rubber on. She turned her back to him and slowly lowered his bubble butt onto his dick, which slid into her pussy without a problem given that she was dripping wet from foreplay. The sight of his dick disappearing inside her made Dean as horny as ever. Seeing this ass going up and down his dick was a dream come true, as he wanted to fuck Joe from the moment he saw her for the first time wearing those tight white push-up jeans when they met. Joe was feeling amazing as well. She hasn't had sex for quite a while, and the thought of a 25-something-year-old being turned on by her was doing wonders for her confidence and her image of herself. She felt wanted, desired, attractive, and as a sexual being for the first time in more than 15 years. She wanted to use him and for him to use her. She rode him like a good little cowgirl should, sliding up and down his shaft, moaning and saying, your dick feels nice inside me. Dean, yeah, you like it, you little minx, you like my dick. Joe, yeah, I wanna ride it bad. Dean, ride it, girl. She kept bouncing up and down his dick, riding it like her life depended on it. Due to all the tension and expectation which made him locked in and ready to fire away at any moment, Dean couldn't last long this way, so he told her to stop unless she wants him to come. Joe heard him but decided to ignore it. She just kept going up and down his dick, making him come in seconds, but even his loud scream of ecstasy and relief didn't stop her. she kept bouncing up and down, trying to milk the last drop out of him. As she did that, Dean was struggling for words, and he kept biting his hand, trying not to be too loud. When she stopped, he was completely spent. He was just sitting there breathing heavily. Used him, and they both felt great for it. He took off her condom and started rubbing her finger against the tip of his dick, which made him twitch and bite his hand again. Despite not doing this herself, her friends shared quite a bit with her during their talks over the years, and finally felt brave enough to try some of those things out. It felt amazing watching him squirm, fighting for control. She felt she had complete power over him and that there is nothing he can do. She just laughed and smirked with a devilish smile as she played with him as if he was her toy. "Joe, looks like you had an accident." "Dean, sure did." "Joe, well, this was fun, but I hope round 2 lasts a bit longer." "Dean, oh, so you want round 2? Joe just winked at him. "Dean, and how can I last longer? I nearly came while you were sucking my dick, and do you even know how hot you are? I wanted to fuck you since I first saw you in those tight jeans of yours, and earlier today in the woods I was thinking about how sweet that ass of yours looks and how I want to eat it." "Joe, such a sweet talker." "Dean, always," grinning ear from ear. "Joe, come on, let's go inside." Finally realizing their dream, they went into the house, and what came was a perfect build-up on a hot and steaming start of their relationship.